If the dealer dealt a fucked up hand of cards, you gotta play him. That's today's sermon. So, I grew up playing spades. I don't know about you guys. That line comes from one of my favorite Outkast songs, and I heard it this morning, and it instantly just kind of ported me back to a certain time and seemed really relevant for what's going on these days. So, like I mentioned, I grew up playing spades, and me and my homegirls would, after class or after school, just sit around and play spades together. And I seem to be one of those people that almost always got a really bad hand in spades, where, you know, when your partner looks at you across the table and goes, "How many you got?" And you got to look back and go, "2 on a possible." And they look at you like, "You make me sick, but we still gonna make this happen." I just feel like I'm one of those people that always gets like a not great hand in spades. But at the same time, I also know how to play that hand well to still come out with something and not lose and not be behind. So I felt like it was a good point, since I've been thinking a lot about self, right? I've been thinking about self-definition and goals and all of that. And this idea that a lot of times, even though you have these dreams for yourself or these plans for yourself, you've been dealt a fucked up hand of cards. And really, it's up to you to figure out how to play those cards to still get what you're trying to get, to still come out ahead or not be lost. So I think when a lot of people ask us who we are, right, a lot of times we respond from places that really kind of center us on that fucked up hand of cards, right? I think a lot of times we start with, you know, when people go, "Who am I?" They'll start with things like, "Oh, I'm where I'm from, my past," right? So I'm from a small town, or I'm from a single parent household, or I'm from, you know, a poor family. And that sort of begins to define to them who they are, this past. Sometime later, you know, we may end up growing up a little bit, and then the next thing that we use to sort of define ourselves is our job. So what do you do for work? Well, so I am a consultant, or I am a lawyer, or a doctor, or a bus driver, or a teacher. And that then begins to define, you sort of add that on. So I'm from this place, this is my past, and this is what I'm doing. So this is who I am. I think when we continue to grow and continue to kind of move through life stages, sometime later we may start to define ourselves as the relationships that we're a part of. So I am a mom, I am a daughter, I am a wife. So you define yourself based on sort of what you are providing to other people, or what role you play to other people, right? And then a lot of times you describe yourself not even as your own sort of assessment, but what other people have told you that they see you as. So, "Oh, you know, my friends tell me I'm bossy," or "My friends tell me I'm, you know, intellectual," or this or whatever. And so those are the various ways that people tend to define themselves. And if you notice, each of those ways is really external to the person. It's external to you. Your past usually is something that was kind of set by somebody else. You didn't decide where you were going to be born. You didn't decide what kind of family you were going to be born into, or what sort of financial situation, or any of that. Your job. Yes, you may have chosen the job, but in itself, the job kind of tells you what you do. And the job, again, usually other people are seeing your job in a way that maybe you're not actually experiencing your job. So if you are a doctor, other people may be going, "Oh my God, that's so great that you're a doctor." Meanwhile, you're experiencing your job as a doctor as stress, lack of sleep, uncertainty about whether or not you're going to catch coronavirus if you're a doctor right now. So the way you experience that is not necessarily the way other people are defining that. And then your relationship, clearly, that is you literally casting yourself as the other people in your life need you to be. So I'm a mom, that is based on your children seeing you as that. I'm a wife, that's based on your husband seeing you, or your significant other seeing you as that. So I feel like for me, there comes sort of a point. Oh, I almost forgot. There's this other whole set of things, right, that we define ourselves as, which I call like affiliations, right? So what groups do I belong to? What political parties, what religions, what even race, gender, class do I belong to? Because even within those affiliations, there are, again, externally defined sort of expectations for how you're supposed to behave if you're a validated member of that particular affiliation. So if you are out here doing certain things and you call yourself a Christian, then other people are going to look at you and go, well, that's not what Christians do. Or if you're out here doing certain things and you call yourself Black, and based on how that's been defined by external parties, other people, even members, usually, especially members of that same affiliation, will show up and police you and go, well, that's not what Black people do. Same thing. That's not what girls do. That's not what women do. That's not what Democrats do. That's not what straight people do, or whatever. There's always going to be, within these affiliations that you're sort of foisted into, there's going to be that external definition of what it means to be a member of that affiliation. And if you do something outside of that, someone's going to come and police you back into that, or label you as an outcast. Full circle. So that said, though, there comes a point where you begin to have to really place all of those things where they are, external to you. Yes, they are there. Yes, they have an impact on you because you're dealing with other people in the world, and that's going to come up. But at a certain point, you're going to have to go into some other space to start to define internally who you are and what that means. And if you've seen my earlier video this week, I talked a little bit about some ways to help you understand who you are. Another way that I particularly like, because some of those other ways are very difficult to just throw out in conversation. I can't throw out to everybody like, yeah, I'm a Gemini sun and a Leo rising. Most people don't understand that. Or I'm an Enneagram 8. What is Enneagram? What's she talking about? Or I'm an INTP. Again, like, this is not generally very useful to throw into common conversation, especially if you're out here in the world and interacting with these people who have these external perceptions of you, and they're coming to you going, you are, and you're going, no, sir, I'm not. So what I like to use in those types of situations, or really to internalize myself without using a whole bunch of words or characteristics that other people don't get, is archetypes. What is an archetype? Good question. For those who don't know, I kind of just say archetype is a symbol. It's something that stands for something else. The symbol itself embodies so many different attributes and qualities that when you say it, people instantly get what that means. For me, archetypes, like, they can come from a number of places, but a lot of times they come from either psychology or sort of mystical concepts like tarot, astrology, and other sort of alternative ideologies or philosophies. So for me, I think that understanding what your archetypes are is really essential to embodying, even in all of these roles that you portray or that you're a member of or that you're a part of, embodying that thing in the way that you define it. I'll give an example of archetypes that I use to define myself. Some of the archetypes I define myself are as storyteller, clearly, evangelist, teacher, mage. Sometimes I define myself as hermit. But these are things that when you say to someone, yes, I'm a storyteller, they instantly know kind of what that means, right? So even if I am, if my job is, I'm a doctor, or I'm an executive in this corporation, my archetype is storyteller. So the way I embody being an executive of this corporation is someone who shows up and always leads with stories. There was this one time on a team where I had blah, blah, blah happen, and here are the learnings that I had, right? So I'm being an executive, but because my archetype is defined as storyteller, that's what I'm always going to bring to that work. That's what I'm going to bring to motherhood. That's what I'm going to bring to sisterhood. That's what I'm going to bring to Black womanness. That's what I'm going to bring to my Christianity. So all these other external things that people have defined me as, sure, they can stand. It's not required, because I know the archetype that is central and core to my being, that when I step into those spaces that other people have defined me as, I'm stepping in, I'm wearing that costume with my own inner definition still intact. And I think it's important to really, have these archetypes throughout life, because it helps you to deal with the fucked up hand of cards that you've been dealt, right? So if you have a shitty job, if you, don't have a relationship, or if you were born poor, if you don't got this, that, the third, then it really doesn't matter so much. Those things become less important, because once you understand what your archetypes are, what it is that you actually are always doing, no matter what you're doing, no matter who you're with, no matter how you're being portrayed, then that will allow you to take that fucked up hand of cards and go, I can make something out of this. I only got two, but I also got a possible, right? And then that brings you in out of the limited and into the possible. That allows you to go, yeah, I'm gonna play this game just like everybody at this table who may have all spades, all trump cards, way more things to cut books with, whatever. But I know how I'm showing up. I know what I have, and I'm going to deliver what I have. And that in itself is contributing to the overall success of what's going on here. And regardless of what other people say, regardless of how other people see me or define me or what groups they've labeled me into, these archetypes that I know are my two and a possible. These things that I have that I always do are how I'm going to contribute to the larger story that's going on. So just wanted to share that today as just some insight into, as I continue to kind of talk about self and defining self and being very clear on who you are, that I thought I'd share some thoughts about archetypes. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you have any archetypes that you use to sort of define who you are? Or do you sort of define yourself primarily by these kind of more external things? And if so, either way you go, have you experienced any difference in how you feel, as far as your self-confidence, your value, your possibilities, whether you're defining yourself externally or whether you're defining yourself internally from some archetype or some greater understanding? How has that helped you, or how has that changed throughout your life? Or would you even try going a different direction and defining yourself as something that's more of a symbol versus a demographic box? So give me some thoughts on that. Share your comments, and I look forward to hearing from you. Talk again soon. Bye.